Heal me, and I'll marry you. The desperate plea of a dying billionaire echoed in the sterile silence of her office, a promise whispered to the unassuming janitor who held her fragile life in his hands. Angelina Vance, CEO of a pharmaceutical empire, lay broken and defeated, her formidable facade shattered by a relentless illness that no doctor, no drug could touch. Elijah Thorne, a man of quiet dignity, found himself at the precipice of an impossible choice, his compassion warring with the sheer audacity of her offer. This wasn't a fairy tale, but a desperate bargain, a collision of worlds that would unravel secrets, challenge prejudices, and redefine what it truly meant to be healed. Could a janitor truly save a billionaire? And at what cost? Hi, my beautiful family, welcome back to Zenith Inspiring Story. Have you ever faced a moment so desperate you'd offer anything for a second chance? Subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's dive into Angelina and Elijah's extraordinary journey. Well, to stay to the end of this emotional journey, to know what happened next. Angelina Vance. The name itself resonated with power, whispered in boardrooms and emblazoned across financial headlines. At 38, she was the formidable CEO of Vance Pharmaceuticals, a global titan built on her late father's legacy of medical innovation. Her public image was precisely crafted, a woman of unyielding strength, sharp intellect, and breathtaking beauty, often seen gracing the covers of Forbes or leading groundbreaking research initiatives. She commanded respect, fear, and admiration in equal measure, a queen on her corporate throne, seemingly invincible. But behind the polished veneer of power, Angelina lived a life of profound, agonizing secrecy. For over 15 years, a rare, debilitating autoimmune disease had been slowly, relentlessly consuming her. It began subtly in her early 20s, a whisper of fatigue, then a dull ache, escalating over the years into chronic, searing pain that gnawed at her bones and muscles. Her energy, once boundless, was now a finite resource, meticulously rationed. The illness was a cruel paradox. A woman who controlled a pharmaceutical empire, yet was powerless against the enemy within her own body. She had consulted the world's leading specialists, undergone every cutting-edge treatment, swallowed countless experimental drugs from her own company's labs, but nothing offered more than fleeting, inadequate relief. Each failed attempt chipped away at her hope, leaving behind a deeper layer of despair. This secret was her golden cage. It isolated her, not just physically, but emotionally. She had learned to build impenetrable walls around her heart, fearing that any vulnerability would be exploited, any weakness exposed. Past relationships, few and far between, had withered under the strain of her inability to fully commit, her constant need to hide the truth, or her fear of becoming a burden. Love, she had concluded, was a luxury she could not afford, a weakness that would only expose her fragility. She was fiercely independent, accustomed to controlling every aspect of her life, from multi-billion-dollar mergers to the precise timing of her pain medication. Trust was a foreign concept, especially when it came to those who might seek to exploit her immense wealth or, worse, her devastating condition. Her life was a meticulously choreographed performance of strength, a constant battle to conceal the truth from a world that celebrated her triumphs but would undoubtedly recoil from her suffering. The night Eli found her, the performance had finally crumbled. The day had been a relentless barrage of meetings, each demanding a level of focus she no longer possessed. A new experimental drug had failed its clinical trials, a devastating blow to her company and, more acutely, to her dwindling hope. The pain, a constant companion, had intensified, a searing fire spreading through her limbs. She had dismissed her executive assistant, insisting on working late, a familiar ritual of self-imposed solitude. But as the last rays of sunset bled from the sky, taking with them the last vestiges of her strength, her body betrayed her. A wave of dizziness, a sharp, blinding pain, and then the floor rushed up to meet her. She lay there, sprawled on the plush carpet of her opulent office, surrounded by the symbols of her power. The gleaming mahogany desk, the panoramic city views, the framed accolades, all meaningless in the face of her utter helplessness. The silence of the empty building pressed in, amplifying her despair. She was Angelina Vance, the untouchable billionaire, reduced to a broken, desperate woman utterly alone. It was then, amidst the hushed grandeur of her private sanctuary, that the soft hum of a floor buffer grew closer. A shadow fell across her, then a figure. Eli Thorne, the night janitor, a man she had likely passed 100 times without a glance, now stood over her, his face etched with concern. His presence was an unexpected intrusion, a stark contrast to the sterile, controlled environment she had always maintained. In that moment of profound vulnerability, with her carefully constructed world shattered around her, the desperate words formed on her lips, a last, desperate gamble against the encroaching darkness. The words hung in the air, heavy with desperation and the unspoken weight of a life teetering on the brink. "Heal me, and I'll marry you." Angelina's voice, usually sharp and commanding, was a fragile whisper, barely audible above the frantic beat of her own heart. Eli Thorne, accustomed to the quiet solitude of his night shifts, stared down at the crumpled form of Angelina Vance, the most powerful woman he knew, now utterly vulnerable. His mind reeled. Marriage? To her? The offer was preposterous, born of delirium, yet the raw, unvarnished pain in her eyes was undeniably real. He saw not the billionaire, but a human being in profound suffering, and his innate compassion, a trait honed by years of quiet service, stirred within him. Eli's life was a world away from Angelina's gilded cage. At 32, he was a man shaped by responsibility and sacrifice. He had been on the cusp of realizing his dream, a final-year medical student with a keen mind and a gentle touch, when his world imploded. His younger sister, Maya, had been struck down by a sudden, aggressive illness, demanding round-the-clock care and draining their family's meager savings. Eli had abandoned his studies, trading textbooks for hospital bills and a stethoscope for a mop and bucket. His work as a night janitor at Vance Pharmaceuticals was a means to an end, a way to keep a roof over their heads and ensure Maya received the best care he could afford. He carried the quiet burden of his unfulfilled potential, but also the profound satisfaction of knowing he had been there for his sister. What Angelina didn't know, what no one at Vance Pharmaceuticals knew, was that Eli possessed a different kind of medical knowledge. His grandmother, a wise woman from a small, close-knit community, had been a revered herbalist, her hands skilled in traditional healing practices passed down through generations. Eli had spent his childhood summers at her side, learning the properties of plants, the art of poultices, and the subtle language of the body. He had dismissed it as folklore during his rigorous medical training, but when conventional medicine failed Maya, it was his grandmother's remedies, combined with his own medical understanding, that had brought her comfort, and eventually, a slow, steady recovery. This hidden talent, a quiet strength, was a secret he guarded closely, rarely speaking of it outside his family. Now, faced with Angelina's desperate plea, Elijah wrestled with a profound moral dilemma. Her offer of marriage was a transactional exchange, a desperate bargain for a cure. He couldn't accept it under those terms. He knelt beside her, his voice calm, steady. "Miss Vance," he began, "I will help you, but not for marriage. I will help you because you are a human being in need." His refusal of her condition, delivered with such quiet conviction, momentarily stunned Angelina. Her eyes, clouded with pain, flickered with a spark of something she hadn't felt in years, genuine surprise. She was accustomed to people wanting something from her. Elijah wanted nothing but to help. With a reluctant nod, she agreed to his terms, a fragile thread of hope beginning to weave itself into her despair. The next few weeks became a clandestine ritual. Elijah, after his regular shifts, would return to Angelina's sprawling, sterile mansion. He began administering a series of herbal infusions, carefully prepared tinctures, and gentle massage techniques, a stark contrast to the invasive procedures and potent pharmaceuticals she was used to. Angelina, initially skeptical, watched him with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. She expected nothing, yet a tiny, almost imperceptible shift began. The searing pain, once a constant inferno, receded to a dull ache. Her exhaustion, a heavy cloak she wore daily, lightened. A flicker of energy, a sensation she hadn't felt in years, stirred within her. It was slow, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Their interactions during these sessions were intimate, forcing Angelina to shed her corporate armor. Eli spoke little, but his presence was calming, his touch gentle and reassuring. He observed her meticulously, noting every subtle change in her complexion, her breathing, the tension in her muscles. He asked questions, not about her company or her wealth, but about her sleep, her appetite, her emotional state. He saw beyond the CEO, beyond the illness, to the woman beneath. Angelina, in turn, found herself sharing details she had never revealed to anyone. The crushing weight of her secret, the fear of dying alone, the profound loneliness that had become her constant companion. The sterile mansion, once a symbol of her isolation, slowly began to feel less like a cage and more like a sanctuary, a place where, for the first time in years, she dared to hope. But as Angelina's health showed undeniable signs of improvement, a shadow began to fall. Dr. Julian, Angelina's ambitious second-in-command, a man who harbored his own designs on the company, and perhaps even Angelina herself, grew increasingly suspicious. He noticed the subtle changes in Angelina, the renewed sparkle in her eyes, the less frequent cancellations, the faint flush of color returning to her cheeks. Julian's jealousy, fueled by ambition and a deep-seated sense of entitlement, began to fester, setting the stage for a betrayal that would threaten to unravel everything. The transformation in Angelina Vance was undeniable. Weeks turned into months, and with each passing day, the debilitating grip of her illness loosened its hold. The chronic pain, once a relentless tormentor, had receded to a manageable ache, then to a distant memory. Her energy, once boundless, now burned brighter, allowing her to navigate her demanding schedule with a vigor she hadn't known in years. The pallor that had haunted her complexion was replaced by a healthy glow, and the deep-set shadows beneath her eyes had softened. She was, quite simply, coming back to life. This remarkable improvement was a testament to Eli's unwavering dedication and his unconventional methods. Angelina, who had once placed her faith solely in the sterile precision of modern medicine, now found herself trusting Eli implicitly. During their sessions, she began to open up, sharing not just her physical symptoms, but the emotional toll of her illness, the profound loneliness, and the gnawing fear of an uncertain future. Eli listened with a quiet empathy, his presence a comforting anchor in her turbulent world. He saw the woman beneath the billionaire, the one who yearned for connection and understanding, and he offered it without judgment or expectation. Their bond deepened, forged in the crucible of shared vulnerability and a growing, unspoken affection. But as Angelina blossomed, the seeds of suspicion sown by Dr. Julian began to bear bitter fruit. Julian, a man whose ambition was matched only by his cunning, had been meticulously observing Angelina's recovery and Eli's increasing presence. He saw not a miracle, but an opportunity. He couldn't fathom that a janitor, a man without a medical degree, could achieve what the world's top specialists, and indeed, Vance Pharmaceuticals itself, had failed to do. Julian's jealousy festered, twisting into a conviction that Eli was an opportunist, preying on Angelina's desperation. He believed Eli was either a charlatan or, worse, manipulating Angelina for her vast fortune. Driven by a toxic cocktail of envy and self-interest, Julian executed his calculated betrayal. He meticulously gathered fragmented pieces of information: Eli's lack of formal medical qualifications, the unorthodox nature of his treatments, and the fact that Angelina had kept her illness a closely guarded secret from the board. He then anonymously leaked this information to a prominent investigative journalist, painting a sensationalized picture of a vulnerable billionaire being exploited by a manipulative janitor. The story exploded across headlines, a scandal that rocked the pharmaceutical world and sent shockwaves through Angelina's carefully constructed life. The media frenzy was brutal. Tabloids screamed headlines of Billionaire's bizarre betrayal and Janitor's cure under scrutiny. The board of Vance Pharmaceuticals, already wary of Angelina's secretive nature, launched an immediate internal investigation. Angelina, reeling from the public humiliation and the sudden, harsh glare of scrutiny, felt a familiar wave of distrust wash over her. Had Eli, despite his gentle demeanor, been playing a long game? Had her vulnerability, once again, been her undoing? A painful rift opened between them, a chasm of doubt and unspoken accusations. Eli, devastated by the accusations, found himself facing a storm of public condemnation and the cold, questioning gaze of the woman he had risked everything to help. He knew he had to speak his truth. In a private, emotionally charged confrontation with Angelina, he laid bare his past. He spoke of his medical studies, the agonizing decision to drop out to care for Maya, and the profound knowledge of traditional medicine passed down from his grandmother. He explained how these ancient remedies, combined with his understanding of modern physiology, had brought his sister back from the brink. His voice, though quiet, resonated with an unwavering sincerity, his eyes reflecting not guilt, but profound hurt and a desperate plea for her to see the truth. Angelina listened, her initial anger slowly giving way to a dawning realization. She saw the genuine pain in his eyes, the quiet dignity that had always defined him. She remembered his selfless refusal of her marriage offer, his unwavering commitment to her well-being. The pieces clicked into place, revealing Julian's malicious intent. In that moment, Angelina made a choice that would redefine her leadership and her life. She publicly defended Eli, issuing a scathing press release that condemned the sensationalized reporting and unequivocally supported Eli's integrity. She revealed, for the first time, the full extent of her illness and the miraculous recovery she had experienced under Eli's care, risking her company's reputation and her own carefully guarded privacy. This act of faith, a public declaration of trust in a man society deemed beneath her, solidified their bond in a way no contract or bargain ever could. It was a profound emotional breakthrough, a testament to Angelina's courage and Eli's unwavering character. The rift closed, replaced by an unshakable foundation of mutual respect and a burgeoning, undeniable love. They had faced the world's judgment and emerged stronger, their connection deepened by the fire of adversity. The battle was far from over, but now they would face it together. Angelina's public defense of Eli had silenced the loudest critics, but the underlying mystery of her illness still lingered. While Eli's remedies had brought her remarkable relief, he knew, with the intuition of a true healer, that something more profound was at play. Her relapses, though less severe, still occurred, often after extended periods in her mansion. It was a subtle pattern, almost imperceptible, but Eli's keen observational eye, honed by years of medical study and caring for his sister, refused to ignore it. He began to meticulously document Angelina's environment, her daily routines, and the precise moments her symptoms flared. The mansion, a sprawling testament to Angelina's wealth, became Eli's new focus. He moved through its opulent halls, not with a cleaning cart, but with the discerning gaze of a detective. He examined the intricate ventilation systems, the antique tapestries, the rare plants that adorned every room. He noticed a faint, earthy scent in certain areas, a smell that was easily masked by expensive air purifiers and floral arrangements, but one that pricked at his memory. It was a scent he had encountered before, in damp, neglected corners of old buildings. The suspense built with each passing day as Eli pursued his quiet investigation. Angelina, now fully trusting him, gave him unrestricted access, her own scientific mind intrigued by his methodical approach. They were no longer just patient and healer, but two minds united in a common, urgent quest. One evening, while inspecting a rarely used wing of the mansion, Eli's attention was drawn to a faint discoloration on a ceiling vent. He requested access to the internal ductwork, a request that raised eyebrows among the mansion staff, but was immediately granted by Angelina. What they discovered sent a chill down Angelina's spine. Deep within the labyrinthine ventilation system, thriving in the mansion's controlled humidity, was a rare, insidious strain of black mold. It wasn't just any mold. It was a specific species known to produce potent mycotoxins, capable of triggering severe autoimmune responses in susceptible individuals. The revelation was a stunning plot twist, a hidden enemy lurking within the very walls of her sanctuary. The cure wasn't solely Eli's herbal remedies, though they had undoubtedly strengthened her immune system and alleviated her symptoms. The true, underlying cause of her prolonged suffering was an environmental toxin, slowly poisoning her from within. Eli's remedies had been a powerful shield, but the mold had been the relentless sword. The realization was both terrifying and liberating. The enemy had a name, a location, and a solution. The eradication process was extensive and complex, requiring specialized teams and a temporary relocation for Angelina. During this period, away from the mansion and the constant threat, Angelina's health stabilized completely. The last vestiges of her illness faded, leaving her feeling truly whole for the first time in decades. But it was during these weeks, spent in close proximity with Eli, that their relationship deepened beyond healing. They talked for hours, sharing dreams, fears, and the quiet moments of their lives. Angelina saw Eli's unwavering integrity, his profound intelligence, and the gentle strength that had always drawn her in. Eli, in turn, saw Angelina's fierce resilience, her hidden vulnerabilities, and the deep capacity for love that lay beneath her formidable exterior. One quiet evening, as they sat on a balcony overlooking a starlit city, the conversation drifted to their future. Angelina, her eyes shining with a newfound clarity, reached for his hand. "Eli," she began, her voice soft, "you didn't just heal my body. You healed my heart." He met her gaze, his own eyes filled with an emotion that transcended gratitude. In that moment, the unspoken truth between them became undeniable. Their hands intertwined, a silent promise passing between them. He leaned in, and their lips met in a tender, hesitant kiss, a kiss that sealed not a desperate bargain, but a profound, unexpected love. It was the moment they both realized that the cure they had sought was not just for an illness, but for the loneliness that had plagued them both, a love that had blossomed in the most unlikely of circumstances. Speech Balloon, what do you think was the most pivotal moment in Angelina and Eli's journey? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video if you're enjoying their story so far. Months later, with the mansion fully remediated and Angelina's health completely restored, the desperate bargain of a dying billionaire had transformed into a joyous celebration of life and love. Angelina Vance, no longer defined by her illness or her wealth, stood beside Eli Thorne, not in a grand cathedral, but in a private, intimate ceremony held in the newly purified gardens of her home. Surrounded by a handful of trusted friends and Eli's now healthy sister, Maya, they exchanged vows that spoke not of obligation, but of profound, unexpected love. Angelina, inspired by Eli's holistic approach, redirected Vance Pharmaceutical's research towards affordable, integrative medicine. Eli, with Angelina's unwavering support, established a foundation dedicated to nurturing aspiring healers from underserved communities, fulfilling his lifelong dream. Together, they built a life rich in purpose, passion, and a love that had defied every expectation, proving that the most powerful cure of all was a heart finally open to connection. If this story of unexpected love and profound healing touched your heart, please subscribe to Zenith Inspiring Stories for more captivating narratives. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that love can be found in the most unexpected places.